Hi, everyone. My name is Brian with International Security Training, and today's topic is going to focus on the hospital security, but very specifically the camera locations and some of the recording or maybe recording retrieval standards that I feel should be in place. So, if you've never had to work in a hospital before, we're going to hit some departments that I think are much like in a manufacturing plant or in a retail center, you'd call them hardened areas or um, sensitive area protection. Okay. So, first place, the emergency room or the emergency department, whatever you call it. There needs to be cameras recording 24/7. Okay. You're going to need them in the inpatient areas. You're going to need them if there's a triage area, the ingresses and egresses, all of those areas. You want them recording 24/7, and you want them recording, like I said, 24/7, not based on motion or movement. Okay. Psychiatrics. All right. In the psych departments now, some hospitals have an inpatient, some have just an outpatient, whatever situation you're looking at. There's a couple reasons. Obviously, we're worried about the patient's safety and patients just leaving when they're not in a safe environment or in a safe capacity to do so. But also, unfortunately, there have been a lot of suits brought against hospitals for patient mistreatment. Okay, and if you can't, if the employee screws up or they, mistreats patients, all right, fine, send them to jail, do whatever, and the hospital is responsible for that. But in some cases, hospitals have settled out of court just because they can't defend themselves. In a lot of those cases, I've seen they haven't had 24/7 recordings available. I mean, in some of these places, they keep the recordings available for 24 to 48 hours just in case something goes wrong, and that's ridiculous. Um, I think a recording should be available on a server. 100% of the recordings, 24/7, should be available for 30 days. Does that cost more? Yes. Does that take up more server space? Yes, that's why it's going to cost more. But it sure beats, the reputation damage that can occur even from just settling out of court. What about the maternity department? Man, you have to have cameras again, ingresses, egresses, nurses' stations, where the babies are at, where the isolates are at. Also, they should be using in hospitals, geez, in today's day and age, infant protection systems. These are those little tags that you'll see on a wrist or an ankle of a baby, and then on a mommy's wrist. And it keeps the babies and mommies matched up. Okay, it'd be via the electronic nature of these bracelets. I believe Stanley's the manufacturer's name. They created the Hugs system. So look that up if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about. The Hugs infant protection systems or the infant protection systems. You'll find it on Google. But they need to be in place. In addition to that's just a separate or an additional layer to the good ID checks and the good camera checks. Pediatrics, inpatient or outpatient, I don't care. Make sure you have cameras there also. Same thing applies. Also with pharmacies. Okay, and again it's layers, right? You have your SOPs, your procedures, back up what the policies tell us we need to have happening. Then we have our access control into and out of the pharmacies. Well, the camera systems are just an additional layer to those things, okay? And first of all, it stops or doesn't stop anything. It helps us when we're investigating pilferage and or theft of the items and the medications that we have. But in addition to that, it helps us with DEA compliance. I worked in that environment for, a pharmaceutical manufacturer for 6-ish years, where I was in charge of security there. And the DEA has very specific rules and guidelines for security when it comes to the scheduled drugs or medications, okay? You're going to have, and this is in addition to what good manufacturing practices, CGMPs, might have as far as security is concerned as well. So the DEA says you're going to be making this drug here. Schedule 1s must be kept in a cooler or a cage that meets these specifications. Let's say Schedule 1 through 3s. Schedules 4 and 5 have to be kept maybe not so stringent, okay? But you're going to have what? You're going to have, we used to call it the DEA cage. We had the DEA vaults. We had refrigerators. We had smaller coolers within the labs. So there's a lot of stuff that has to go on, and there's procedures with each of those types of security devices or containers. Now, how do you make sure that your employees are following the rules, especially if it's the 2-on-1 rules, which means 2 employees have to be with the product when they're opening or closing one of these safes, vaults, coolers, what have you? Well, you would look to your camera system. That is how you do it. We have to have these different layers because the biggest problem in security is the human being. Whether it's intentional or unintentional, we goof. That's just the way it is. If you know, and a lot of people are like, oh, you don't trust your employees, you don't do this, you're building an environment of distrust. Well, you know, that's one way to look at it. You can also look at it as the camera systems are the little birdie on your shoulder, the little angel on your shoulder, making sure we do things right. Okay. I think all you have to do is you have to be adult about it and look at the situation. Look how thefts and pilferage happen. Look how companies get put out of business by government regulators when the policies are not followed. It's because the humans screwed up somewhere. So we have to put a positive spin on it. Let's make sure that our policies are backed up by the correct procedures and that both of those things are backed up by good quality camera observation and recording, and make sure that you can go ahead and search back to a certain day, a certain time span for whatever your needs are, whether it's a human resources need, whether it's a security need, whether it's a QA need, quality assurance. But make sure you have at least 30 days worth of data to go ahead and check out. That's all I have for today on the camera systems. Until next time, my name is Brian with International Security Training.